Okay, so today we're going to talk about Lesson 2, the arithmetic sequences and series. But before we start getting into what arithmetic sequences and series are, I want to make sure that you guys have had a chance to go through numbers 1 through 4 in the group warm-up. If you haven't yet done so, why don't you take this time now to pause the video or stop the video, work on numbers 1 through 4, and then you can start this video back up to check your answers. We're going to move on with it right now and get the answers for numbers 1 through 4. But again, if you haven't had a chance to work on them yet, I suggest you stopping the video, getting your answers down, and then using the rest of this video to check your answers. In number 1, they're asking us to write the next term in the sequence. Then they want us to write a rule for the nth term. Okay, so in number 1, we're starting off with 1, and we go to 2, which goes to 3, which goes to 4. So we obviously know that we are increasing in our sequence by adding 1 to the previous term. So our next term is going to be adding 1 to the 4, which gives us 5. Now, like we talked about in lesson 1, our pattern and our rule are not going to be the same value. So we know that to come up with our rule, we can't just use our pattern. So we're going to set up our little chart like we did in lesson 1. And we're going to plug in our values. The top row is always the term value, and the bottom row is always the actual sequence numbers we're given. So for example, our first term is 1. Our second term is 2. Our third term is 3. Our fourth term is 4. And our fifth term, which is our next term, we know is 5 because we found that before. And we want to come up with an equation or rule that when I plug each of these values in, I get these bottom numbers back out. And we always start a rule with a sub n. So if you notice, our top row is always called n, our bottom row is always called a sub n. So a sub 1 is our first term, would be 1, and it reads just like that. So in this case, what do you notice between our n values and our a sub n values? Do they change at all, or are they the same number? And in this case, they all are the same number. So we know our a sub n terms are the same thing as our n terms. So our rule should be a sub n is equal to n. In number 2, we start with 3, and we're going to 4, 5, and 6. So we know that we're getting our next term from our previous term by still adding 1. So if we set this up, we know our next term is going to be 7, since 6 plus 1 gives us 7, and we have to come up with our rule. Our rule is not the same as our pattern. We're not just adding 1, even though that's what our pattern has us doing. So top numbers are our n values. Those are our term placements. So our first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth term. My first term is 3. My second term is 4. My third term is 5. My fourth term is 6. And my fifth term is 7. Okay? So my rule, a sub n, is if I plug 1 in, how do I get 3 out? And it has to be the exact same equation that when I plug 2 in, I get 4. When I plug 3 in, I get 5, so on and so forth. So if I go 1, if I add 2, I get 3. So my top row is n. If I add 2 to my top rows, I should get the bottom ones. But we have to make sure that they work for all of your columns. So is 1 plus 2 3? Yes. Is 2 plus 2 4? Yes. Is 3 plus 2 5? Yep. Is 4 plus 2 6? Yep. And 5 plus 2 is 7. So it works for all of my columns, so I know my rule is a sub n is equal to n plus 2. 3 and 4 is just asking us to find the sum of the series. Sum of the series we know is we're just adding our values up. So 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 gives us 14. And 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 should give you 18. So those are the answers for numbers 1 through 4 for your group warm-up.